Furthermore, it's really good to study English for beginner English learners as these consist of easy English only. Can you explain to kids about Black Lives Matter in English? If you don't think so, hello everyone, it's Yuriko. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here and thank you so much for watching. Today, I'm gonna show you guys about the podcast for kids. But let me tell you this beforehand that I'm going to make this video in English because I want to improve my skill. I will make a lot of mistakes in this video, but please understand that this is the reality. If you just stay in Australia for a year and 9 months, you might think that I should speak better than this as I've been living here for over a year and a half because I expected so. Well, this is the reality. Okay, let's talk about the podcast. These are good for kid education, so you can use them for child raising or for a pair job like me. Furthermore, it's really good to study English for beginner English learners as these consist of easy English only. So I listen to them for myself as well. Since I started working as a babysitter, I realized that most of Australian families have this rule that no screen time on weekdays. So kids are not allowed to watch TV or using iPad. It's because these are really addictive. But podcast is only for listening. So you can educate them without screens and you can play it wherever you want for free. So get your phone to download them and let's dive in. So I'm going to introduce 4 podcasts today. First, stories for kids. Second, news for kids. Third, answering kids' questions for curious kids. And last one is for bedtime. Alright, so first one is stories for kids. I recommend you this podcast, Story Nori. In this podcast, they share fairy tales like Snow White, myths, their original stories, and world stories like The Grateful Crane from Japan. As they have some Japanese stories, I think it's good podcast for families who want to raise their kids in English and Japanese mixed culture. For instance, I've looked after 2 girls as an au pair who learn Japanese as a second language in their school in Australia. They are really interested in Japanese culture, so they love listening to the Japanese fairy tales with this podcast. Additionally, it's quite fun to listen to a story which I've already read in Japanese. The storytellers speak slowly but dramatically, so kids don't get bored. Second one is news for kids. I recommend you this podcast called ABC Kids News Time. This podcast is about all the amazing stories happening at home and abroad each week, made especially for young children to help them understand the world around them. The host Ruby counts down the week's most interesting news stories for preschoolers. I often listen to general news podcasts, but these are still difficult to understand for me. But ABC Kids News Time uses easy English, so even for me, it's understandable. When kids ask me about the thing which is happening in the world and if it's difficult to explain to them in English, the podcast helps me. For instance, can you explain to kids about Black Lives Matter in English? If you don't think so, open ABC Kids News Time podcast and listen to an episode Black Lives Matter, which was published on 9th of June. Ruby and some kids explain to you about Black Lives Matter in easy English. Third one is answering kids' questions for curious kids. The podcast is ABC Imagine This. In this podcast, scientists answer the kids' questions. Each episode, they delve into a puzzling question from an inquisitive mind, examining the science behind it in a fun and engaging way. The questions are like, why do shooting stars fall out of the sky? Why are there waves? What is coronavirus? And so on. Each topic is really interesting and it's suited to kids aged 4 and up, so even grown-ups can learn something new. After listening this podcast, your kids might get curious about everything in the world, like why flowers bloom, why are there colors in this world, stuff like that. In my opinion, curiosity is one of the most important things in childhood, and this podcast definitely helps it. And you know what? You can submit your kids' questions to ABC Imagine This. They might pick up the question and a scientist answer it. It would be a great experience for your kids and make them more curiosity kids. So check out their website and go for it. So the last one is for bedtime. It is difficult to settle kids down to sleep when they are energetic. I'm always struggling with putting them to sleep. Seriously. But this podcast helps them calming down and getting them to sleep. The podcast name is Bedtime Explorers. Each episode starts with a meditative music, and then a story starts with a storyteller's calming voice. These get rid of anxiety and promote healthy sleep routine. Actually, I use this podcast for me when I can't get to sleep as well. Sometimes, even if my body is very tired, it's busy in my mind when I'm thinking about something too much and can't get to sleep. In this case, I listen to this podcast so that it makes me relax. Now, you have it 4 podcasts you should listen to with kids. I'm feeling that many people have started listening to some podcast shows or started new incredible shows in this quarantine situation. So, if there are shows that you think I should listen to, that kids and I might like, please let me know. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this video till the end, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bye!